Sunday morning, June the 28th, 1914, 6 men take up positions along this line on the bank of the Miljaska River in the city of Sarajevo. They have but one thought in their minds: to kill the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who's visiting the city with his wife Sophie Chotek. But among these 6 accomplices, only one would immortalize his name in the history books: Gavrilo Princip. And he would do so in such a way that if you don't believe in luck, you might start to. Belgrade, 1914. A few months before the assassination. We are inside one of the many cafes in the Serbian capital. Suddenly, a young man named Nedeljko Čabrinović enters the cafe, a native of Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Despite his young age, he has already had numerous jobs, including plumber, carpenter, and finally typesetter. Nedeljko finds a table and sits down. Sitting at the same table is another 19-year-old boy, Gavrilo Princip. Nedeljko and Gavrilo have been friends for a couple of years now. After the usual greetings, Nedeljko takes a newspaper clipping out of his pocket to show Gavrilo, who reads it. The Archduke, heir to the throne, and his wife will come to Sarajevo and take part in military maneuvers. Once he has finished reading it, Gavrilo returns the clipping to Nedeljko without any comments. However, later that evening, Gavrilo invites Nedeljko for a walk in the park. Once sat on a bench, Gavrilo proposes something to Nedeljko that leaves him perplexed: to plan the assassination of the Archduke. But Nedeljko's perplexity is short-lived. He accepts the proposal and shakes his dear friend's hand. At that precise moment, a sort of countdown begins for the Archduke. He doesn't have much time left to live. But perhaps the countdown began many years ago. More precisely, on July 25, 1894, when Gavrilo Princip was born in a small remote village in western Bosnia called 𝐂𝐚𝐞𝐫𝐬, where his greatest privilege had been not to die at birth. In fact, Maria and Petar, Gavrilo's parents, had given birth to 5 boys and 4 girls, but only Jovan, Nikola, and Gavrilo would live to see adolescence. He had always been an introverted child, but he did not allow himself to be bullied even by older children. His mother, Maria, would describe him as follows: he was a quiet child who read a lot, but for every blow he received, he would give back twice as much. On June 28, 1914, Gavrilo would deal a double blow to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which will deafen an entire generation. At 13, he was sent to study in Sarajevo, where he met Danilo Ilić, a 17-year-old fervent nationalist who would influence him at an impressionable age. From that moment on, Gavrilo had consumed more books than food. Many of these came from Danilo's library, which was full of socialist and anarchist literature. He had then moved to Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, to continue his studies, like many young Bosnians. In recent months, Gavrilo had been thinking constantly about how to strike the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then the perfect opportunity presented itself. He would kill the heir to the throne. But the countdown had also begun for him, because he had chosen not only to kill, but also to die. Balkans, from the Turkish word Balkan, which means mountain. A term coined by German geographer Johann August Zöllner to describe this peninsula in southern Europe in the early 19th century, when 3 great empires sought to control it: Russia, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman, The latter dominated much of the Balkans, but its power was rapidly declining. In 1815, after a series of successful revolts, the Principality of Serbia was born, a state formerly under Ottoman control, but with significant administrative and judicial autonomy. In 1821, it was Greece's turn to gain full independence. The decisive turning point came in 1878, when after the Russian Balkan victory in yet another war against the Ottomans, the Congress of Berlin redrew the region. Serbia, Montenegro, and Romania became independent states, while Bosnia-Herzegovina was assigned to Habsburg administration for 30 years, remaining formally under Ottoman sovereignty. In 1908, exactly 30 years later, rather than returning Bosnia, the Austro-Hungarian Empire unilaterally annexed it. This provoked resentment from the Ottomans, who felt betrayed, but even more so from the Serbs, who hoped to incorporate it into a unified Greater Serbia. This decision fueled Bosnian nationalism, inciting young people like Gavrilo to drive out the Habsburg Empire by any means possible. And in 1914, there was one man who represented the Habsburg Empire more than any other, even more than Emperor Franz Joseph himself, his heir presumptive. November 1913. At this time, Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie are staying at the residence of the Dukes of Portland in Nottinghamshire, England. One day, while Franz Ferdinand and the Duke of Portland are out hunting, one of the people responsible for reloading the guns falls to the ground, along with the rifles. On impact, 2 shots are fired from the barrels, missing Franz Ferdinand by just a couple of meters. This is what the Duke of Portland wrote many years later. I have often wondered whether the Great War might not have been averted, or at least postponed, had the Archduke met his death there, and not in Sarajevo the following year. It's not the first time the Archduke has escaped death, nor will it be the last. In 1895, he had contracted tuberculosis, a disease that killed millions. But Franz Ferdinand, being one of the richest men in Europe, had been able to afford the best health care of the time, which eventually cured him. When he was born on December 18, 1863, Franz Ferdinand had no throne to look forward to, but a series of tragedies, including the suicide of the emperor's only son and the death of his own father, led him to become heir to the throne. To counter growing Slavic nationalism, Franz Ferdinand intends to introduce a third state entity for the Slavic populations. It's also in this context that Franz Ferdinand would visit Sarajevo on June 28, but perhaps he is unaware of what that date signifies for the Serbian people. June 28th is a very important day for the Serbian people, as it commemorates the Battle of Kosovo of 1389, fought by the Serbian Prince Lazar against the Ottoman Empire led by Sultan Murad. It was a strategic defeat for the Serbs, yet a hero emerged even from defeat: Miloš Obilić. Serbian legend has it that Miloš infiltrated the Ottoman camp and stabbed Sultan Murad. Visiting Sarajevo on the anniversary of a Serbian nationalist killing a foreign ruler centuries ago will not prove to be a wise choice. But to become a hero, you don't always have to succeed. Sometimes it's enough to fail. Such is the case of Bogdan Jarajić, a 24-year-old revolutionary who had attempted to assassinate the governor of Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1910. However, the 5 shots fired from his pistol had missed their target. Only the 6th had hit its mark: his own head. Miloš Obilić and Bogdan Jarajić are Gavrilo and Nedeljko's idols. After shaking hands, they wonder where they can find weapons to carry out their mission. They meet daily to catch up, with nothing new to report. Their fortunes change when one day Nedeljko talks to a certain Milan Ciganović, a member of the Black Hand, and a guerrilla fighter who has distinguished himself in the recent Balkan Wars, earning a medal and the closeness of Major Vojislav Tankosić, one of the founding members of the Black Hand, along with Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijević, also known as Apis. The Black Hand is a secret society that shares Gavrilo's goal, that is, to unite all states with Serbian people. In the meantime, Gavrilo has involved another friend of his in the plot, Trifko Grabić. By late May 1914, Milan delivers 4 Browning pistols and 6 Vasic M12 grenades to Gavrilo and Trifko. A quick note on these grenades. These grenades are not percussion bombs, those that explode on impact, but rather time bombs. Once the button is pressed, you have to wait about 10 seconds. On June 5, 1914, Gavrilo, Nedeljko, and Trifko reach Sarajevo. They had left Belgrade 8 days earlier, and it had not been easy to get there with weapons. They had crossed mountains, rivers, and forests, with help from some naive farmers, corrupt agents, and businessmen affiliated with the Black Hand. The person coordinating the attack is Danilo Ilic, Gavrilo's friend. To increase the chances of the assassination being successful, Danilo has involved 3 other young men: Vaso Čubrilović, Svijetko Popović, and Mohamed Mehmed Bashić. Danilo also gives cyanide to all his accomplices. Once the attack has been carried out, they must commit suicide so as not to leave any traces. Their plan is based on the following itinerary of the royal couple, already made public. At 9 o'clock, Mass at the chapel of the Hotel Bosna. At 9:25, departure for Sarajevo by train. At 9:50, arrival at Sarajevo station. At 10 o'clock, arrival at the City Hall for a warm welcome. At 10:30, departure for the inauguration of the State Museum. At 12 o'clock, lunch at Konak, official residence of Bosnian Governor General Oskar Potjorek. At 2 p.m., a sightseeing tour of the city. At 9 p.m., departure from Bosnia. Now, the means are there, and so is the intention. All that remains is the execution. After several days of rain, the sun comes out in Sarajevo on June 28. At 9:50, the Archduke and Duchess are welcomed at the train station by General Oskar Potjorek. Soon after, the procession of 7 cars leaves the station. The first car carries several local police officers. In the second car is the chief of police together with the mayor. In the third car, a Graf and Stift are the royal couple and General Oskar Potjorek. In the 4 cars behind are various officials, officers, and aides to the Archduke. At 10 o'clock sharp, all 6 conspirators take their places among the crowd, waiting for the Archduke's arrival. There are not many police officers or barriers between the crowd and the arriving cars, a decision shared by the Archduke himself, not only to show his closeness to the people, but also to better appreciate the charm of a multicultural city like Sarajevo. Mehmed Bashić is the first to spot the Archduke, but he does not act, probably out of fear. Vaso wants to act, but he's beaten to it by Nedeljko, who, after detonating the bomb by hitting it against a lamppost, throws it towards the Archduke's car. He was supposed to wait at least 10 seconds, but overcome by anxiety, he did not. The driver, seeing the black object in the air, accelerates. The bomb hits the hood of the Archduke's car and falls to the ground. And then, the bomb has exploded under the 4th car, injuring several people. The vehicles stop to assess the situation. After the explosion, Nedeljko swallows the cyanide and throws himself into the river. But both suicide attempts fail. The cyanide has deteriorated, and the river is only 13 centimeters deep. He is beaten by the crowd and then arrested by the police. Along with the explosion, the assassination plan also seems to have gone up in smoke. The cars quickly drive off towards City Hall. All the other accomplices flee, except for one, Gavrilo Princip. He goes to a delicatessen named Moritz Schieler on Franz Joseph Street, hoping that the Archduke will follow the original plan and pass by there. At City Hall, the mayor, unaware of what has happened, welcomes the Archduke with these words: "Your Imperial and Royal Highness, Your Highness, our hearts are filled with joy at the most welcome visit with which Your Highnesses have honored the capital of our country." These words further irritate the Archduke. Duchess Sophie intervenes to calm him down and succeeds. Subsequently, the Archduke himself gives a speech in which he thanks those present for their warm welcome and hospitality. The awkwardness is palpable. Later, the Archduke asks General Potjorek, "Do you think further attacks are possible?" Potiorik replies, "Rest assured, I take full responsibility." The original plan gets canceled. Instead of visiting the State Museum, the Archduke decides to go to the hospital to visit Colonel von Meritzi, who was wounded in Nedeliko's attack. At 10:45, the Archduke leaves City Hall, still in the third car. The vehicles travel along the 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐿 at a constant pace. When the first car reaches the corner with Franz Josef Street, near the Latin Bridge, instead of continuing straight ahead, it turns right, following the original plan. Apparently, no one has informed the drivers of the new plan. The other cars follow, until General Potiorik, realizing the mistake, shouts, "What are you doing? Stop! You're going the wrong way. We must continue along the 𝐂𝐴𝐿. As the driver prepares to reverse, which is a complex maneuver for this vintage car, Gavrilo Princip suddenly appears, takes aim at the Archduke, and fires 2 shots. After firing, Gavrilo points the gun at his temple to commit suicide, but the crowd jumps on him, preventing him from doing so. He then swallows cyanide, like Nedeliko, with the same result, only burns and vomiting. Gavrilo is arrested and taken away. In the car, the Archduke and the Duchess initially appeared to be unharmed, but when the vehicle moves, their bodies slump. A bullet has penetrated near the side door and struck the Duchess in the abdomen. Another has pierced the Archduke's neck. At 11:15, both are officially pronounced dead at the 𝐂𝐚𝐞𝐿, the governor's official residence, with the Duchess having died a few minutes earlier. This triggers the most devastating chain of events in human history, which will destroy millions of lives and establish a new world order.